So it is now my honor to introduce our commencement speaker. And boy, are we lucky to have James Sandman as our speaker. He is a remarkable friend of Albany Law School and someone I deeply admire. Jim Sandman has had an incredible career. Currently, he is a distinguished lecturer and senior consultant to the future of the profession at the University of Pennsylvania Carey School of Law. He's served as president of the Legal Services Corporation, an organization that serves thousands of low-income individuals, children, families, seniors, and veterans in offices throughout the United States. He is a true champion of justice. For 30 years, Mr. Sandman practiced law with Arnold & Porter and served as the firm's managing partner. He was general counsel to the District of Columbia Public Schools. He is currently chair of the American Bar Association's Task Force on Legal Issues arising out of the 2020 pandemic and is chair of the board of the DC Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy. It would take me all day to read the list of awards and honors that Jim has won. He was named one of the 90 greatest Washington lawyers of the last 30 years by the Legal Times and was honored with the District of Columbia Bar's Justice William J. Brennan Jr. Award, just to name a couple. He is a summa cum laude graduate of Boston College and received his law degree cum laude from the University of Pennsylvania, where he served as executive editor of the Law Review. He began his legal career as a law clerk to Judge Max Rosen of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. And of special note to all of us, Jim is the son of the late Edgar Sandman, Albany Law School class of 1946, and he is a supporter of the family's Edgar and Margaret Sandman Fellowship. Please join me in welcoming Jim Sandman.
Thank you, Alicia, for that very kind and generous introduction. Surveys consistently show that 91% of law school graduates can't remember who spoke at their commencement 2 years later. And of the 9% who can remember who the speaker was, only 6% can remember anything the speaker said. Actually, I just made those numbers up. But I'd make an educated guess that they're pretty accurate. One notable exception being the speech we heard this morning by Rob Capers of the Board of Trustees to the class of 2021. I have no illusion that you will ever remember me. I do hope that you might remember my message. I can state it in 4 words. Good people finish first. No matter what you do, no matter what you do with your law degree, your personal character, integrity, kindness, generosity, and service to others will promote your professional success. Anyone who ever tells you nice guys finish last is a cynic, a loser, and wrong. I came to the conviction that good people finish first from observing successful leaders I know and whom I admire. But lest you think that I'm just spouting bogus commencement speaker pap, my case is also based on hard facts. A growing body of research suggests that givers, people who are generous, compassionate, and helpful, make strong leaders and are more productive and successful than people who are not. I'd like to tell you about some of that research, then give you some real-life examples from my own experience, and conclude by explaining why I think your Albany Law School education gives you an edge in life. A few years ago, a professor of management at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, Adam Grant, published a book titled Give and Take, A Revolutionary Approach to Success. The book sold over 1 million copies, has been translated into 35 languages, and is widely regarded as a masterpiece in the study of leadership. Professor Grant's research shows, as he puts it, that across many industries, from banking to manufacturing to retail, givers are more likely to earn promotions and ascend to leadership positions. There's reason to believe, Grant says, that in the long run, the greatest success and the richest meaning will come to those who, instead of tearing other people down, pursue their personal ambitions in ways that lift others up. Professor Grant's conclusions are consistent with other recent scholarship. A study published last August in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by researchers at the University of California at Berkeley validated Grant's conclusion by demonstrating its logical converse. The official title of the article was, "People with Disagreeable Personalities, Selfish, Combative, and Manipulative, Do Not Have an Advantage in Pursuing Power at Work." The headline of Berkeley's official press release about the study put the conclusion a little more memorably. It read, "Being a selfish jerk doesn't get you ahead." Other research shows that compassion, empathy, and kindness are both instinctive and distinctively human characteristics that explain the dominance of humans in the evolutionary chain. The renowned anthropologist Margaret Mead said that the first sign of civilization in a human culture is a femur, a thigh bone, that has been broken and then healed. She explained that in nature, an animal that breaks a leg dies. The animal can't run from danger or hunt for food. A broken femur that is healed is evidence that someone took the time to stay with the one who fell, to bind up the wound, to carry the person to safety, and to tend the person through recovery. Helping someone else through difficulty, Mead said, is where civilization starts. Michael Tomasello, co-director of the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Germany, devised a series of tests to compare the behavior of chimpanzees and toddlers. Toddlers share food regularly with strangers. Have you ever seen that? There's a baby in front of you in the checkout line at the grocery. The baby offers you some food. It's usually not pretty. It's often been in the baby's mouth. Whether the baby's intention is to share sustenance or just pleasure, this is a gesture of instinctive generosity. By contrast, chimpanzees, the animals genetically closest to humans, rarely share food even with their own offspring. The instinct to help others persists through adulthood and functions even when we may not be aware of it. Professor Grant of the Wharton School conducted a study in which he posted 2 different signs at hand-washing stations in a hospital. One said, "Hand hygiene prevents you from catching disease." The other read, "Hand hygiene prevents patients from catching disease." Doctors and nurses at the station where the sign noted the risk to patients used 45% more soap than those at the other station. Charles Darwin himself, whose theory of evolution posits survival of the fittest, believed that sympathy, compassion, was an evolutionary advantage. Darwin wrote that those communities which included the greatest number of the most sympathetic members would flourish best. In other words, species whose members help each other will thrive. Good species finish first. I wasn't aware of any research correlating personal character and generosity with professional success when I came to my own conclusion that good people finish first. My conclusion has come from people I know. I'll give you 4 examples. In every case, their personal character has been at the root of their success. My first example is the judge for whom I clerked immediately after graduating from law school, the late Max Rosen of the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. He was my first and most important mentor and role model as a lawyer. Judge Rosen was a remarkable jurist and a remarkable person. The great Chief Judge Edward Becker of the Third Circuit called him one of the most remarkable men who has ever graced the federal bench in the history of this republic, and described him as a man of almost divine grace. Judge Rosen's formidable professional achievements were directly connected to his personal character. He was kind, generous, and gentle. I was struck by the goodness of the man the day I met him. As a part of my interview, he took me out to lunch. I thought that was just extraordinary. A circuit judge taking a law student out to lunch. As we walked to the restaurant, I noticed 2 things about this person I had just met. The first was that he knew every single person we passed. Everyone, not just the white guys in business suits. It took a long time to get where we were going. And second, I noticed how the people we met spoke to Judge Rosen and how he spoke to them. There was great respect, almost reverence in the way they spoke to him, and he reciprocated their respect. For every person we met, he stopped. He gave of his time and attention. He engaged them. He said something kind to them. He made them feel important. I saw that quality of treating every person with whom he dealt with respect, everyone, throughout the year I worked for Judge Rosen. I saw it in how he dealt with his fellow judges, especially when he disagreed with them. I saw it in how he treated the lawyers who appeared before him, even when they weren't as well prepared as they should have been. I saw it in how he worked with his secretary. I saw it in how he treated court staff and the security guards. I saw it in how he spoke to servers in restaurants. And I felt it in the way he treated me. I was an inexperienced, insecure, introverted 25-year-old in my first real job. He treated me as a valued professional colleague, and he made me feel like $1 million. Judge Rosen lived a life of service, both on and off the bench. He gave back to his community. He was involved in a host of civic, charitable, and religious activities, and virtually every day spent some time assisting some nonprofit organization. He was proof that kindness and generosity are not only compatible with professional success, they promote it. I was, and I am to this day, the beneficiary of this good person's example. My second example is Brian Stevenson, the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative and the author of the acclaimed and best-selling book Just Mercy, which was made into a movie starring Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx. Bryan Stevenson is, to my mind, the finest lawyer in America today. Since he graduated from Harvard Law School in 1985, he has devoted the entirety of his career to rectifying injustice, racial inequity, and cruelty in the American justice system, particularly as those phenomena affect their most vulnerable victims, those condemned to death, and children. His work has had an extraordinary impact. He and his colleagues at the Equal Justice Initiative have won reversals, relief, or release from prison for more than 135 wrongly condemned prisoners on death row. He argued and won the 2012 United States Supreme Court case that held sentencing a juvenile to mandatory life in prison with no possibility of parole ever to be cruel and unusual punishment in violation of the Eighth Amendment. Stevenson has received many accolades. He's been awarded honorary degrees by more than 40 institutions, including Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Oxford. He has received the American Bar Association's Gold Medal, the association's highest honor. But this recognition has never gone to his head. He has remained humble, self-effacing, selfless in the service of others. He works at getting close to his clients, spending time with them in prisons and jails, affirming their humanity. He believes that every human being is better than the worst thing they've ever done. His Equal Justice Initiative, the nonprofit he heads, has annual revenues of $35 million, but he takes no salary. When he won a MacArthur Foundation Genius Fellowship at the age of 36, he contributed all of the sizable cash award to the Equal Justice Initiative. He lives on part of the salary he receives for teaching at New York University Law School, and he gives the rest to the Equal Justice Initiative. He's never forgotten where he came from. He regularly credits and thanks those who helped to form him, especially his beloved late grandmother. He has said that the true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. By any measure, his character has contributed to his success. My third example is the one I know best. It's my dad, Edgar Sandman, who graduated from Albany Law School in 1946. Dad died 5 years ago when he was 96. He was a success story. His start in life was hard. He was 15 months old when his father died, leaving his mother a widow at the age of 25. He was able to get a good education at Union College and at Albany Law School, but he couldn't find a job as a lawyer when he graduated from law school, even though he was at the top of his class, in part because of blatant discrimination against Catholics at the time. He finally found a job at an Albany bank. It was not a job that required bar admission. It was not a job for which a JD was any advantage. It paid $1,200 a year, but it was a job. On his first day at work, he rolled pennies in the bank basement. He must have been one ace penny roller, because he ended up becoming president of that bank, and later in his career was recruited to be a top executive at one of the biggest banks in the country, in New York. No one would ever describe my dad as a self-promoter. Quite the contrary. He was a quiet and humble man. Shy, really. When you talk to people about my dad, two themes recur. The first thing they mention about him is his integrity, rock-solid integrity. He was a man of his word, a straight shooter. He didn't play games, and he had no personal agenda. He had an almost preternatural instinct for the right thing to do, and then he just did it as if there were no alternative. The second thing people mention about my dad is his service to his community. The list of nonprofit organizations he led or served is very long and varied. He served as a member of the Board of Trustees of Albany Law School for more than 30 years, including as chairman of the board. He was instinctively kind and generous, always giving back. Toward the end of his life, I asked Dad which of the many honors he had received meant the most to him. He didn't miss a beat before responding, Albany Law School. I asked him why. He said, there's nothing like being honored by your own. You see, this law school helped to form him, and its approval meant the world to him. The last time I was here at Saratoga Performing Arts Center was 30 years ago, when my dad received an honorary degree on this stage. I believe my dad's professional success was closely connected to his integrity and his selflessness. People trusted him. They were comfortable vesting him with leadership. I know I'm biased, but I believe my dad finished first. My last example is one you know. It's your dean, Alicia Roulette. She's a product of this law school. Alicia is a renowned scholar in the field of bioethics. She has done a remarkable job as dean, leading the law school with confidence, wisdom, pragmatism, and grace through challenging times in legal education. I am convinced that her success is attributable to her personal character, never more so than during the past year as she has navigated the law school through the trauma of the pandemic. At every step, she has been guided by her powerful personal sense of empathy, humanity, humility, kindness, compassion, generosity, concern for others, and commitment to the Albany Law School community. Alicia has provided comfort in a time of great uncertainty. She sought input from throughout the community before making decisions, and has then communicated decisions promptly and clearly. Her daily town hall check-ins after the pandemic struck during your spring semester last year reflected her understanding of the importance of transparency and accessibility and of your need for information. She understood your desire to have an in-person commencement, and she promised you would have it as soon as the law allowed. And she delivered. Alicia's commitment to her colleagues, to students, to faculty, and to staff is deeply personal and often unseen. She arranged to open the law school during lockdown for a student who desperately needed a stable internet connection for a job interview, and offered her own home to the student if the school building couldn't be opened. Over the course of the past 6 weeks, she's made early morning calls herself to find vaccine appointments for students who couldn't get them on their own. She always makes herself available to anyone who just needs to talk. I think she's a modern-day version of what Margaret Mead was talking about, the person who takes the time to stay with the one who has fallen, to bind up wounds, to carry others to safety, to tend the fallen through recovery. These qualities are not in the job description of a law school dean. They reflect who Alicia is. Thank you, Alicia. I believe that your experience at Albany Law School has given you an advantage in whatever you do with your law degree. You received here, at this special institution, an education in far more than law. You received an education in values, the values of community, collegiality, generosity, caring, respect, service, and mutual support, all modeled so magnificently by your dean. Other law schools aren't like this. Your years at Albany Law School have promoted and fortified that basic human instinct to help others, an instinct that will allow you not only to survive, but to thrive, to succeed, and to lead. If I can be helpful to any of you in any way, I will. If you are the first in your family to have gone to college or law school, if you're having a rough time transitioning into practice, if you'd like to talk about your career, if you don't know where to find a mentor, I will be your mentor. I mean it. You can contact me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Of course, yes, I'm still on Facebook. My email address is james.j.sandman@gmail.com. My phone number is 202-494-3455. Don't ever worry about bothering me. Helping you is my way of repaying and expressing my gratitude to Judge Rosen and to all the other mentors and role models I have been blessed to have. My hope for you is that some years from now, you might remember that at your Albany Law School commencement, some guy whose name you've long since forgotten told you that good people finish first, and you'll be able to say, and he was right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely extraordinary. Thank you, Jim.